All right, guys, welcome back to the Buffalo Bridal Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Alex from Kinloch Farmstead. Not only a wedding venue, also a lavender farm, which we'll talk about more in a little bit. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Great. How are you?
Good.
Awesome.
All right, Heather, take it away. Let's do this.
Let's get it started. Okay, Kinloch Farmstead is so unique and so beautiful. Tell us about it. Like, where did this idea come from? Like, where did this get born?
Well, kind of a long story. I hope you have a minute.
Well, it's a podcast.
Well, I was living in Brooklyn. I had been working in advertising for about 11 years. And I had my first daughter, my Grace, and I just was like, I can't raise a child in Brooklyn. I was like literally Ubering her across the Brooklyn Bridge in a car seat and then taking her to daycare. It was just like...
It's wild.
It was
As
horrible.
someone who lived in New York too,
Yes.
like, I don't know how you did that.
It was horrible.
It's wild.
And then plus I was just like, I've been in advertising for 11 years. I'm like, I can't sit at a desk all day. This is just not for me. So I had gotten married about 2 years prior. So it was 2014 when I was married. And I feel like that was when the sort of indie revolution was starting because, I mean, I don't really know why, but I think it's kind of like Instagram was starting, Pinterest was starting, Etsy was coming big. And so I think people were, for the first time, seeing more unique weddings. Whether it be through Pinterest or being able to customize stuff with Etsy. So when I got married, I had a sort of an indie wedding in 2014 where it was really custom and unique and different and smaller. It was about 125 people, I think. So after my wedding, like a lot of weddings where people are doing a lot themselves, I had all this stuff, like vases and candlesticks and drink stir things and I was like, what do I do with it? And it's just like, after your wedding, you're just like exhausted and you don't want to deal anymore. It's like, it's so fun leading up. And then afterwards, you're just like, I don't want to even like look at that vase.
And you're also like, it's over, right?
It's over. It's like, oh God.
You don't even want to think about it for a little bit.
I didn't want to think about it. But like, I was in Brooklyn, so I had to do something with it. I can't have like boxes and stuff
I was just
in my
going to say, your
apartment.
space is limited, right?
Yeah. So I just found a resale website, which there's a lot of resale websites, but it's just like annoying to ship it. It was just annoying. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool? Because at the time, my office was right above Rent the Runway in Tribeca.
Yeah.
I was like, wouldn't it be cool? Rent the Runway, for those who probably don't know. It's a fashion.
Looking at you.
I doubt you're a customer of yours. It's like a fashion line where you just rent the clothes, so they ship it to you in a garment bag, and then they have the shipping label, so you just put it back in the garment bag.
Oh, very nice.
You know, dirty.
It was one of the first ones really on the scene to do that. Now there's a couple of them, but I was a customer.
I was too.
Because, like, you know, if it's something that you're going to events, you don't want to spend all this money on a nice dress you're going to wear one time.
And they just made it so easy because it came in the garment bag and you just put it right back in the garment bag. The shipping label was already there. It was like easy. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool to have a rental business that was just that? Like you rented the vases or the candlesticks or whatever. It came in a box with the return label, and then after the wedding, just put it back in the box, blah, blah. So I made a 10-year business plan. And at the 10-year mark, I envisioned having this barn wedding venue that was on a lavender farm. And the barn was like partially a showroom for my rental inventory, but partially a wedding venue.
Why lavender farm?
I just thought it'd be really pretty.
Okay.
And I liked lavender.
Sure.
And I just thought that'd be really picturesque for the weddings, and I just personally like lavender. So I made this 10-year business plan. I did when you make business plans, you have to do all the math and the calculations, and I quickly realized that it'd make more sense to start with the weddings than to start with the rental part, kind of work backwards. So cut to, we moved to Buffalo for my husband's job, and I just immediately was like, I'm doing this. I'm gonna do this. I live in Buffalo now. I can actually afford to buy farmland. Obviously, it's much cheaper to do that here than New York City.
And probably a lot easier to find.
Yeah. And so I just immediately started looking for farmland right away, and I did it. And so started off with the idea of making a unique barn venue that was intimate, that was cool and different, and sort of that indie vibe. That was kind of what I was envisioning. So that's what I moved forward with, and it's just funny now because I flipped the business idea on its head, and now I do offer a lot of decor as a part of my wedding package. I don't rent it out, but it's included. So all those candlesticks and the table numbers and those little cutesy things that it's annoying to buy, I do include it in our wedding packages. So I kind of like did the business plan with like tweaks along the way as I was going. So So yeah, long story short, that's how I did it. That's why I did it.
And that's so good for engaged couples to know, because all those little things, they add up and they're obnoxious.
Yes.
And then to your point, like, what do you do afterwards?
Yes.
If you end up purchasing them, like, then you have your own inventory
Yes.
of wedding stuff.
Yes.
You know, so it's really, really convenient when a venue offers that
Yes.
as part of the entire package.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't even think about that until the end. It's really nice to have it all in one. So what kind of like wedding packages do you offer? Do you have ceremony and reception on site? Like, what can a couple expect?
So our current wedding package is, well, the cost is $8,000 for a Friday, $8,400 for a Saturday, same package. So you have the ceremony on site. You have a really cool woodland ceremony area.
Guys, this ceremony
It's
space,
super
I've
cool.
seen the
It's so
photos.
like,
secret.
I'm not to interrupt you, but this is beyond a ceremony
Oh,
space.
thank you.
This is a dream. Like, my sister, she lives in Brooklyn right now, and I don't know if she's ever going to get married one day. However, if she ever does, I took the video of that walk through that winding
thank
little
you.
path to where the ceremony space is, and I was like, this is your vibe. This is where you're gonna have it,
you.
because it is gorgeous.
Is there still a little door there that you walk through to get down
Yeah,
there?
little
That-
doorway, yeah.
I feel like that's such fantasy. Like
Yes.
you're walking through the door into this amazing space, and it's super cool if you get to see it. So
You get transported. It is so unique and so cool.
Can you guys work
haven't-
at Kinloch? I'm never really good
Sure.
at like selling my own place. I'm very like kind of to the point sort of person. So I never use like the flowery language, but thank you guys. Yeah, so it includes a ceremony. We include a day of coordinator, a setup team, the decorations, so all those candlesticks and stuff like that, all the tables and chairs, and then the usage of just anything on the property. So we have like fire pits, we have a little she shed, we have cornhole games, and it's private use of the property. So it was really important when we were building this barn. I really wanted it to be private. So for anyone who's been there, it's kind of hidden away. It's hard to see from the road. That was intentional to just keep it intimate and private. And I didn't want like multiple events. I hate when no offense to people who do that, but when you are at a place, everyone's been to a wedding where there's another wedding going on like, nearby or down the hall. And I just like, that's just not for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really private experience. And I tried to make the package, our wedding package, be kind of full service while also giving room to customize. So you can pick your own DJ, you can pick your own florist, you can bring your own decor as well as use ours. So I wanted it to be like helping people execute a really nice high-end wedding, but also giving you flexibility to make it your own.
Yeah.
and last season you also put in an awesome outdoor bar.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right on the patio out there. So you have the indoor bar and the outdoor bar.
Yeah, so we now have 2 bars attached to the barn, and then we had this like vintage camper that we moved into the woods. So now when guests arrive for the ceremony, they go into the woods and they can have a welcome drink from our
I was
little.
gonna, that was going to be my next
Vintage.
question
It's
for you
so
was
cool.
the camper. So
Yeah, the camper we moved, so it's so cool. The
Yeah.
camper is just like this little cute little vintage thing. So when guests arrive, they just walk into the woods, they can have a drink, and we made like a little happy hour spot in the woods,
nice.
and while they wait for the ceremony to start.
Like, how dreamy does
That's
this sound?
awesome.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
seriously, when you walk into the woods, you get a drink and you sit down. It's this beautiful woodland like
Yeah.
experience. I just love that you have this separate space that is for the ceremony itself, and then guests can come back and they have this beautiful barn
Yeah.
and all the outdoor, and not to mention these beautiful lavender fields
Yeah.
that are surrounding the property. It's just it's like nothing I've ever seen. It's really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Talk about capacity. So what is your minimum capacity, your maximum capacity? Like, how many people are coming here for these events?
I don't really have a minimum, but our max is 120.
Okay.
We can technically fit more like 130, 135, but I like to say 120 because a lot of weddings go over, and we've had that happen many times. So when they're like, "Oh my God, it's actually 128. What am I gonna do?" I'm like, "Don't worry, I already buffered that. I'm saving you."
that was gonna
yeah, we
Yeah,
can't go to 140, but 130 is okay.
right. Yeah, that's fine. So we're like, okay, thank God. So I've learned after 7 years of doing this, a lot of, and I'm sure you guys have found this along the way, a lot of planning a wedding and helping someone execute this is saving people from themselves, right? So like I can say all day, our max is 120, our max is 120. So you'd think people would say, oh, I'll only invite like 130 because that'll at
Yeah,
least
you can
that'll
drop
give me.
off, sure.
Yep.
How many people are like, well, I invited 170, and you're like, why would you invite 170 when you know the place is 120?
50 humans
Right.
that have
And
to
they
go
just hoping-
someplace.
Right.
My favorite line is, well, I know these people aren't going to come. They're
Right.
they're on the other side of the country.
Right, and then you're
Lies.
like,
And the next thing you know, they're like, I want to go on vacation. I want to go to
And then they
Buffalo.
Google Kinloch Farmstead and
Yes.
they realize it's
Yeah.
a beautiful woodland
Yeah.
experience and they
So-
fly.
Yeah, so I did. So 120 is my max, but yeah,
I love
there's
that.
some buffer room.
Talk about like the getting ready space because you have like a really cool like she shed space for
So
the
the
bride.
getting ready, I don't have a bridal suite or like a groom suite at the moment. That's something I'm like debating. The reason being,
We're always forgot about it.
You guys never get a.
I know.
Nobody
I
cares
know,
about
I
you.
look
I'm
at
sorry.
my mom, I was like,
Nobody
everybody
Nobody
cares.
cares about you.
Well,
Like they're not
I
doing
just
their hair
say
and
that
makeup
so
done.
nicely.
So yeah, so this is like an area where I'm like, I don't know, maybe one day I'll add it. Right now we just have I call it the she shed. It's this cute little white shed, and inside there's like chairs and mirrors, and it's really a place for a bride
Sorry,
to
Ron.
touch up their makeup or like hide before the ceremony. It's a place just to be for maybe like 20 minutes or keep your purses. It's not a place to get ready.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't have a bridal suite and a groom's
It's
whatever
okay. I get it.
is because I feel like if you arrive to a venue at 9 a.m. to start getting ready, you're going to be there till midnight. Like it's just such a long time to be in one location.
Sure.
And I feel like it's a better experience to be like at a hotel or at your home getting ready, and people can come and go grab lunch. And we've all been in like, well, we haven't all been, but some of us have been in like wedding parties where it's like a whole day thing, and you're stuck there and you're taking photos for hours, and you're just sitting in this room for like hours and hours and hours waiting for
Yeah.
your makeup time to get done. And I'm just like, I just don't want people here starting at 9 a.m. They're just
Yeah.
here all
That makes
day. I just think it's nice to sort of break up your day and like arrive to your venue. We let people arrive about 3 o'clock if they want to do some photos ahead of time. And I just feel like it makes it more exciting, because when you're there starting at 9, I just feel like the excitement
Dwindles.
dwindles.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I love when a bride shows up like right before the ceremony. She's there before everyone else, and she walks into the barn for the first time. It's all set up and perfect, and it's like, oh my God, this is so pretty. I just feel like that's like more special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like that. I like that idea. I do
Yeah.
like the fact that you guys have a she shed, so you do have a place.
right,
You have
if
a
they
place
want
to
to
kind
like
of hide
touch up
away.
right.
And all that, but I do like the idea of, you want to be surprised too if you're getting married.
Right.
You want that experience too. And to your point, if you're there all day, you're also seeing all the behind the
Yes,
scenes
yeah.
stuff that maybe
Exactly.
isn't like the most.
Exactly.
You feel like you're a part of getting everything
Yes.
ready a
Right.
little bit more versus I'm walking into this beautiful space
Totally.
and I'm the guest of honor, you
Yes.
know, and me and my partner are going to go do this thing. I
So,
really
mean,
like that.
Maybe
intention.
one day I'll add it. At the moment, I just don't feel.
Yeah.
I understand where your point of
Yeah.
what you're trying to get. Yeah, because like I'm trying to think. Where I got married, it's like we kind of just like hung around all day.
Right, all day.
Kind of waiting for everybody type thing, and
Yeah.
then it's like then we're kind of getting into your space while you're trying to set up
Right.
type
Yeah.
thing. You know what I
Right.
mean?
So I don't know. It does make it more convenient when you have it on site, but I don't know. I just feel like you lose a little bit of the magic.
I
Yeah,
like it.
that makes
And there are
sense.
so many great places that people do utilize for getting ready, whether it's, your family's house
Right.
or there are so many like cool little spots.
Airbnb. People go on Airbnb and
Airbnb.
rent up spot
Yeah.
to get ready at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So actually, I really like that.
Thanks.
I like that idea. You're so smart, Alex.
Oh, good.
I love it. So you touched upon this a little bit earlier about like a preferred vendor list. So when a couple comes in, oftentimes they have no idea. You're the first stop, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to catering, when it comes to photographers, when it comes to DJs, do you have a list that you recommend or require people use versus, some other categories that maybe they have a little bit more options?
So this is back to the save people from themselves conversation.
Yeah.
So at first, the first couple years, it was very like, we're just the venue and you can bring in any vendor you want for anything. And after a couple years of that, I started to like rein it in a little bit more.
Sure.
Because I found some weddings just, Ron, like it's like, people think, it's a bar. You just like buy some alcohol,
And bring a friend.
throw a friend behind
Yep.
there. And like how many weddings have I been to where they ran out of cups, they ran out of vodka, and it just makes the experience bad. And I don't think people realize how much work goes into a wedding, all the planning,
All the details.
all the details,
Yeah.
and they think it's just kind of like, it's just a party, and it's like, no, this is like a lot of work.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You're not just doing 20 people in your backyard.
Right.
We're
Sure.
talking about 150 people, 120 people that you have to make sure you don't run out of anything.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And we always sit down and talk about hiring professionals for that exact reason. It's because they know what they're doing.
Right, and I had at the beginning weddings where they were bringing in like all this booze, and then they're coming the next day because they ran out of vodka, but they have 20 cases of Riesling that no one drank. You know, it's like, what am I going to do with this? So I have changed it a bit where I'm still trying to let people customize it, make it their own, but I have 2 caterers that they must work with. They can choose which one works best for their budget and, you know, their tastes. But and then we now provide the bar. We got our liquor license because we're now growing grapes and making wine.
That's so
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
congratulations! That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. So and now I have added in. We do the setup. We have a day of coordinator. So I have added in things just to make sure it runs a little smoother because I did find letting people totally DIY it didn't always create the best wedding. Some were great.
Well, sometimes couples don't know.
They don't know.
what they don't know.
Exactly.
You know.
They also don't know what they need.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Again, we talked about celebrity weddings where they can do whatever they want.
Sure.
Most people that are getting married here are probably not celebrities or low
Right.
bid that can
Right.
buy everything they need. And
Exactly.
Right.
So I do have it down to 2 caterers. But there's freedom with desserts, DJ, florist, photographer, those sort of vendors. I have recommendation lists, but you can work with whoever you'd like.
Awesome.
So kind of a mix of both.
A mix of both. I like that. I like that. So do you have any like horror stories of couples who kind of like went a little bit rogue and then like ended up regretting it or didn't have like a great experience?
Yes, a lot. It was like in that case. So this, I don't know if this is gonna be, we had a wedding where it was more of a budget wedding, and that's fine. Like I like to welcome weddings of all budgets. It was a smaller, like more lower budget wedding. And at the last minute, unbeknownst to me until rehearsal night, they cut all appetizers, which I guess, what do you care, right? Well, you care because now you have people there for hours and hours and hours drinking with no food.
Yeah.
And not only are people just going to be hungry, so it's a bad experience for a guest, but it's actually like kind of dangerous like,
It
as someone who's holding the liquor
I was just saying the
liability.
liquor license.
Right.
Don't you have to
Because-
give appetizers?
Yes, you legally have to.
Yes.
You're a farm. Like
So,
you're just
so
driving.
I
There's
kind of politely said
space.
to the bride the night at the rehearsal when I found out, like, so she's like, oh yeah, it just wasn't in our budget, so we cut it. I said, well, maybe you could go get like a charcuterie board from Wegmans or something, just anything. And she was kind of like, no, not interested. So then I spoke to the mother, one of the parents, and she was like, oh my gosh. And so she did go and get some stuff, but because people never planned weddings like this,
Yeah.
she forgot to get the utensils and she forgot to get the plates.
See, yep.
So she shows up with like apps, which was great, but she didn't have any of like the serving stuff or plates or
Yeah.
anything. So my coordinator ran off to the grocery store and she came back with the stuff. So I'm like, thank God I have people there to just make
Right?
sure, because I don't think any guest realized or noticed,
Sure.
but it was like, oh my gosh, you guys were about to like be like throwing up drunk in my bathrooms.
Well, Crystal said I don't know if it was the same one or not, but she said that people like were legit coming up and being like, where are
Yeah.
the appetizers?
Yeah.
Like they were looking for
Yeah,
them.
but then they're gonna look to you.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they go right to
They
the
don't
catering.
know.
And that's going to be really rough as a venue
Yes.
because the negative review will probably fall on you and not
Correct.
necessarily the catering company.
Absolutely, like that is why I have narrowed it down to
Yeah.
2 caterers, because I have literally gotten negative reviews because the food was cold, and it's like, I don't even know who that caterer is. I have
That's
nothing
not.
to do with that
That's
caterer.
not you.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the chicken was cold or this or that, and it's like, you know, you don't want to be rude to say, well, that's because the couple chose a bad caterer, why are you blaming it on me? You know, it's kind of like you don't want to be like rude to your client, but yeah, it puts you in a bad position
really
when you look
does.
bad.
Sure.
Yeah.
It does.
The next question is, aside from obviously like its unique characteristics, like what makes Kinloch Farmstead kind of stand out as a wedding venue?
Yeah, so something that kind of just happened as a part of my business plan, I ended up really enjoying, but also makes us unique, is the lavender field. So literally when I made this 10-year business plan back in 2015 or whatever, I just included the lavender field because I wanted it to be beautiful and picturesque. it turns out I never gardened a day in my life. I don't have a farming experience. I don't have farmers in my family. I've really come to love the lavender piece, and so I think it's really cool that we're an actual working farm. So a lot of barn wedding venues, they are just buildings meant to look like a barn, but it's actually not on a farm, or maybe they once were a farm, but now they're just a wedding venue. We're still an operating farm. So we have hay that we grow and harvest. We have bees that we harvest the honey from. We harvest the lavender and make products out of the lavender that we sell online and at our U-Pick event. We just started growing grapes and making our own wine. So it is a working farm, and I think that's cool that some weddings will incorporate some of our farming into their weddings. So I've had weddings that have obviously lavender as a part of their color scheme or in their bouquets, or we even have our products included in the wedding, like soaps and whatnot as favors. And now that we just started growing grapes, we now serve our wine at the weddings as well. So I think that's really unique. And speaking of our bar, we're a fully New York State bar. So that means all spirits, beers, and wines are sourced from New York State, which I think is really cool, kind of just to align that with that farm fresh kind of ethos we have. So the fact that we're an actual working farm, I think makes us very unique. Our ceremony space is really what makes us the most unique. We're one of the few woodland ceremony areas in all of New York State. So if people are looking for that woodland cool vibe, we're one of the few ones that offer that. And then just like the look of the barn, like the aesthetic of our barn, all barns look different. Ours is more, a little cleaner, a little bit more modern. It's not like rustic, uber rustic-y. It's more kind of rustic modern look. So I would say like the aesthetic of our look overall, and then the fact that we're a working farm growing lavender and making some of our own products that are actually served during the wedding itself. Yeah.
I love the fact that you guys are so sustainable.
Thank
I mean,
you.
it is like a full ecosystem there, which I think is really cool,
Thanks.
especially as, people are concerned about where they're getting things from. And I mean, you're literally getting lavender from the front yard, for lack of a better word. It's right there.
I mean, you literally drive past lavender on one side, grapes on the other side.
Yeah.
Right? When you pull up the driveway.
It's
so.
incredible. I think the other thing that sets you apart, and I know you don't like to toot your own horn, but Upstate Indie Weddings hosted an event in 2023, and I remember our second meeting, and I showed up, and you are on the tractor. There she is in her overalls, literally on the tractor, cutting the grass, making sure the farm is in working order. It was just her out there with her iPod in, or her, her earbuds in, and that level of dedication, that level of service, that level of care, that like you are the one, you could hire anybody to do that, and I hope that you have since then. But like that personal connection, that like you're so passionate about it, like that spoke to me.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
that's huge.
I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome, where like even with the lavender, like because I didn't grow up farming and I didn't grow up like with gardening experience or whatever, I now have been growing and harvesting lavender for 8 years. And it's still, when people ask me about lavender, I'm like, I don't have a clue. I don't even know how you grow it. I'm like, wait, I'm actually a lavender expert.
Wait a
That's
minute.
So weird.
Yeah.
I have a whole farm.
Yeah. Or even like with like weddings, like we have now hosted over 100 weddings at our facility. So like our day of coordinator or myself, who's worked so many weddings, I'm like, oh yeah, we're like experts on how to do this here. And I think like a lot of venue owners, like every venue is different and weddings work different at different weddings, but I'm like, for weddings here, we know how it runs best here. So like when people are asking us, about timelines or this or that, I'm like, we are experts now at doing it the way that it's gonna flow the best, go the best.
You have the process.
Yes, we know how it's gonna, make a really great event. And so I guess I am an expert now at doing some of this stuff, even the farming stuff. As much as it feels crazy to admit, I'm like, I guess I'm an expert at that. But yeah, so I do, I guess, have a little bit of imposter syndrome. But I'm really type A. I'm really, really uptight, super uptight, a perfectionist. So wedding, like, I want everything to look perfect.
Sure.
I want the grass to look perfect. So that day, maybe the lawnmower guy couldn't come that day. So I'm gonna get on and I'm gonna mow the lawn, because if the lawn doesn't look perfect, I'm on the mower. I'm doing it.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So I really care about everything being perfect.
I love
Yeah.
that.
That was one of
That's
the things
so
I loved
important.
about being there was that
Yeah.
a lot of the owners that I personally deal with, I don't know if you get this, but they're not as hands-on as you are. Like you do want everyone's day to be 100% perfect from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of owners that like rent the venue out and then they have a few employees who like do the majority of the work and you never really see them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always really nice for us to meet the owners and know who we're talking to. And I love from the very beginning your communication with me was like, okay, this is how we're doing things. I have this, and even though we supplied things, you still had them there because you were like, okay, I don't know if this bartender's going to run out because I had never met you before. I never worked with you. You had backup ice for me. You had cups. I was like, wow, like this is
Well,
great.
That's the way to do it.
Organized, organized.
Yeah, I do.
covered.
It's one of the most important days of someone's life.
Right,
So
yeah.
I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure it runs really smoothly. And something I'm going to hopefully instill in my team this year as much as I can is just the concept of hospitality, just like the art of hospitality, actually, not the concept. I grew up, my family had restaurants, so I grew up making sure everything's, I was a bartender, I was a hostess, I was a waitress, I did catered weddings, so I grew up being able to like put on a smile when you wanted to turn around and be like, wow. And you're like, what did you say? A little more of that? Oh, that steak isn't done perfectly. Oh my gosh. Like,
You
I
just
grew up
walk
that
in the
way.
back to vent that out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I grew up that way. And just like making people feel welcome and happy and surprising people with little touches. Like my coordinator does something that I just love, which is during happy hour when the bride and groom are off taking photos or off talking, she'll make a plate of the appetizers and put them at their settings.
That's so nice.
Just like little touches that you.
I usually grab them a drink after the
Yeah, or
the
grab them their
ceremony
favorite.
and
She'll
give
go
them a
up and
drink.
go, what drinks you want while they're posing for photos, and it's just like little touches like that. And I want to even go above and beyond and do more of that, like just fun little surprises.
Make their day the best.
Yeah,
Like,
just to
at
make
the end of the
their
day,
day
just
best.
make
That's
them
always the
happy.
best feedback I get is when they're like, we really appreciate all the small things you did. Like, yeah, sure, you came and did your job, but
Right, exactly.
the extras are so important.
Right, like I want it to be, above and beyond.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Absolutely.
It's so important. So if a couple is considering, there's so many different venue types out there. If they don't know, right, what kind of venue type maybe fits them the best, and they're considering this kind of barn, more rustic venue, what are some things that you think that they should think about maybe before they make that decision?
We're considering, okay, so one is obviously the weather.
Sure.
So our venue is very ideally indoor-outdoor. We have like fire pits and cornhole games, and of course the woodland ceremonies outdoors. So if it rains,
Yeah, what do you
a
do
lot
if
of
it
the
rains?
magic of that stuff is gone.
Yeah. What do you do if it rains for the ceremony?
So we can do the ceremony. Well, the nice thing is that the ceremony outside can be turned over really quick. So we sometimes are deciding 20 minutes before the ceremony where it is. So last summer was super rainy, but we had, I would say almost half of our weddings, it was going to rain at some